Good evening, one and all. You are tuned in to the Real Money Coach Show here on a Tuesday evening, man. And I'm excited about our show today. I'm excited about our guests. I'm excited about all that we have. And you all know what to do. Come on in, put into the chat where you are watching from, what city, what state, what country, wherever you happen to be. Put it in the chat. We want you to be as active as ever tonight. Make sure you put that in the chat. I'm still waiting for the first one. I see y'all coming in. Nobody's put. There we go. Brad Hudson in Belmont, North Carolina. Brad, thank you for being here, being the first to say where you are located. Listen, I am excited. The weather here in Charlotte is really awesome. I'm going to be taking a couple of days off this week and to do a little R&R, a little chasing a little golf ball around the course. Latricia from Clinton, Mississippi, down there near Jackson, Mississippi. Thank you for being here. I'm glad that you are dialed in tonight. Listen, speaking, Latricia just made me think about it. We have had an absolutely wonderful time in our TRMC Masterclass. We've gone, the first week we've done financial psychology. The second week of the masterclass, we did budgeting and savings. Then we did loan and debt. That was budget and saving was led by Valerie Rhodes from my team. And then Vixen Powell led us in loans and debt. And then we had a special guest, Byron Pratt led the discussion on credit last week. And then last night we had Timothy Day, who led our discussion on income taxes. So we've been getting some really, really good information. The presenters have been excellent. If you've seen a part of that, just put that in the chat. And it's been absolutely free. And so this coming week, we have Kimberly McGuinn, who will lead us in a discussion about insurance. And then we will cap off our 7th week with Euro Day from Boston, Massachusetts. We'll be talking about investing. And then what we'll do after that is we will go back and we will circle back to a master class on the book, iPad Your Money, Increase, Protect, and Dominate Your Money. If you do not have the book, please make sure you get the book. We'll do 7 more weeks of that. And then we'll circle back and we'll do some more financial literacy training. And all of this, of course, is absolutely no charge to you. A lot of great content, no charge to you at all. So we're excited about that. I do want to just pause before we get too far into the show. Just want to condolences and prayers to the folks in Nashville. If many of you probably have seen that on the news, that there was a Christian school there. Hello, Alice Martin. We're glad that you are here watching tonight. There was a school that there was a mass shooting. Last I saw the news, I haven't really been able to see much of it today, but the last I saw was that there was 3 children, 3 adults who lost their life there. So we want to definitely pray for that community. And speaking of Nashville, I will be back in Nashville, actually Murfreesboro, First Baptist Church in Murfreesboro on the 28th. I will be capping April's Financial Literacy Month. So I will be capping off the month at Murfreesboro, First Baptist Murfreesboro. On the 29th, I will be leading a debt elimination workshop, and then I will be preaching the next morning there. So that's the 29th and 30th of April in Nashville. And if you can make it, we will pray for Rolling Fork in Silver City, Mississippi. I'm not sure what happened there, but we will find out. If you happen to be in the Baltimore, Maryland area, you can meet me at the State of the Black World Conference on the 22nd. I will be there with George Frazier. He called and asked me to accompany him to that event. So George, Dr. Frazier, and I will be there together. So if you happen to be in that area, and I believe it's going to be at the harbor, we'll share more details about that as we get closer to that day. So that's my quick announcements. And as always, remember, we do have the radio show that does air every Saturday morning at 7:30 a.m. and then also goes out as a podcast. Thank you, Latricia, for the update. Tornadoes came through there last weekend. So let's definitely keep that city, that area in our prayers, as well as all over the country. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in California, fires, floods, a lot of stuff happening. And, we just really have to just pay attention, watch and pray. And so let's bring my co-host on. Let's bring on Mrs. Michelle Mitchell. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
You doing good in the cold?
In the cold.
In the cold. Well, we got some.
Too bad today, but it wasn't too bad today.
Wasn't too bad today.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, big month coming up. Coming up. April is Financial Literacy Month, and so we want to do some things really, to in the month of April to really kind of promote financial literacy and those type of things. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we might do is have this celebrity meet and greet.
What do you think? Yeah. I think that would be great.
So those of you who are in the Charlotte area who've been waiting to get to meet Michelle in person, we will have a brief, greet and meet and greet. And we're going to do it down at the Optimus Hall in just north of Uptown. And I think what we're locking in on is noon on Saturday is where we will come. And those of you who've been to Optimus Hall before, it's kind of an open, there's different food vendors, open cafeteria. So, we should be in pretty good shape to be able to make sure that we get a chance to meet everyone. You guys will get a chance to meet Michelle. And so that'll be great. It'll be fun. I might even show up, who knows? I might even show up myself, and along with our significant others, I'm sure will be with us. And so if you're not doing anything Saturday at noon, come on out. And I know for many of you who are part of the Mount Carmel family, man, we got a big day because at 10 o'clock, they're going to be dedicating, have a big event down at the baseball field. There's a new baseball field, the Metrolina Reds, which is a team here locally, and they're doing great things, Michelle, because they have, and it's mostly African-American boys and girls. Mm-hmm. And so they said they want to make that like the Negro baseball league of the city, right down that corridor. But it's actually a really, really nice field. Queens College practices there, and they're going to have a lot of MLB players. They're going to have bouncy house. They're going to have all sorts of things for the kids down there, and that's at 10 o'clock. Mount Carmel is a part of that because it's right down the street from us. And so after you guys leave there, you want to get something to eat, come on down to Optimus Hall and check us out and visit with us.
I'm excited to meet everybody. So
that's neat. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. And so we're going to have a great time. We're going to have a great time. Yeah. So what else is going on, Michelle? Anything new that we need to share?
Let's see. I would share something probably next week, but I am doing something for Financial Literacy Month, and I've gathered 12 collaborators to help me share the message of making cash flow in your business, and they're providing resources to help business owners figure out like what they need for their business. Because my job is to help them bridge the gap between their passion and their profit. So we're bridging the gap with collaborating with other people, so that you can get a different perspective than, from me, where I come from strategy and finance, and they may come from different parts of, the business pillars. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, and the thing about it is, teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
Everybody brings their own areas of expertise, whether it's digital marketing, human resources,
Mhm.
finance, business credit, personal credit, all
Yeah.
those type of things to kind of make the business enterprise go. So that's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. And we'll continue to do some things special for on the personal side. And that's kind
Mhm.
of what makes
Right.
us really work well together is that you focus on the business. I kind of
Mhm.
focus on the personal as well as, business owners. They bleed over,
They
obviously.
do bleed over. Yes,
And
absolutely.
so that makes it
Yeah.
pretty cool.
So towards the end of the month, yours truly has helped me with our private podcast that will launch after Make Cash Flow. So, yeah,
A private podcast. I like
it's a
that.
private podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
What platform?
We're using Kajabi.
You're going to use Kajabi. Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
I know Kajabi does have a good platform. And
Yep.
so
Mhm.
that's pretty cool. So
Yep.
I want to ask you this question, Michelle. When you
Mhm.
think of because this is really our last show
Mhm.
in what is Women History Month.
Yeah.
And I know you're really passionate about women and women in business and all that
Yes,
kind of
I am.
thing. And so tell me, what do you think about when you think about women in history, and what stands out to you?
Yeah. I'm really excited about our guest because, women have always, tried to be, it wasn't always favorable for women to be business owners in this country, and the story of Madam CJ Walker is very inspiring to me because she has such tenacity, in the turn of the century. Like, who does that?
Right.
It doesn't matter what you're selling, but the tenacity that she had just really inspires me. And, she laid the foundation for women to even think about owning their own business.
Mhm.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah, so
pretty
I'm
awesome.
pretty excited about
That's very awesome.
our guest
Oh,
tonight.
Ben, remember that the share button on there for you two up in the corner.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing to me is just when you think about, and we probably should say something just for when our guests come on, but when you think about just hair care and that industry, and as I've been an acquaintance of Joe Dudley a few times and in
Mhm,
his home and all those type of things. And then one of my biggest clients is the No Grease franchises here. And
mhm,
so yeah, it's pretty awesome. So what I want to do to before we bring on our guest, I'm going to attempt to show a little video here. It's just an hour and 45 minutes. But I just thought it would be a great introduction, and then we will bring this bundles on. So Dante, I'm gonna give this a try. You right at the tech guy will have to bail me out, Michelle, but we're gonna try it. Let's see if I can make it happen. All right, let's see. Can you guys see my screen?
mhm.
Michelle, can you see it?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
When Madam Walker started her company in 1906, there were very few women who were in business. She and Helena Rubinstein and Elizabeth Arden were women who were all in the same boat. They were trying to develop an industry. People didn't even take them seriously. She traveled door to door, town to town, teaching individuals in churches and in people's parlors and wherever she could. And she could see that ultimately it really wasn't as much about the hair care product, though that was important in an era when women didn't have access to those products, but it also was very much about empowering women and about helping women become economically independent. So the more she trained women and the more she taught them to train other women, she was developing a national and really international network of women who were Walker agents. Those women could see not only were they able to transform themselves, but they also were able to make money that they could contribute to their churches, to pay tuition for their children to go to school, to buy homes. And this then became really the goal when I look at her life, I think it's fabulous that she became a millionaire. Stunning that she became a millionaire. But for me, the more lasting legacy is that she empowered people and that she used her money to make a difference in her community and to show other people their ability to make a difference in their communities.
I love that.
All right. So without any further ado, there's another commercial behind every one of those videos, right, on YouTube, right? So, but without any further ado, I am really, really excited to introduce to the Real Money Coach listening audience, viewing audience, Lydia Bundos, the great-granddaughter of Madam C.J. Walker. Welcome to the stage.
Hi, Tony. Thank you. I did that video a long time ago, but it is really one of my favorite ones because it kind of says everything in a short period of time.
You know, that is an action-packed, about 100 seconds, right? It's about 1 minute and 45 seconds, but it says so much. And, I am just tickled and honored that you are here with us tonight. We had a chance to talk earlier in the week, and we had the radio show. And I tell you, you are just a delightful person. And I'm going to tell everybody, I just have to tell this story because to me, it's just really amazing. So, I'm telling stories all the time anyway, right? So maybe
but you are a preacher.
Right. So some of these classes, when we did the credit class, y'all, my special guest was also a preacher. And so, that thing went for 2 hours. They're like, but anyway, so the Lord really had put it on my heart that I wanted to honor, Madam C.J. Walker. And I said, it would really be great to have, a relative of hers come on the show. And it was just in my spirit. And so what I actually did is I went to Google and I Googled, and your name came up. And when I saw your picture, I was like, oh yeah, because I'd seen you do documentaries before and comment. And I simply called you up, and within 5 minutes, you called me back and agreed to be on the show. And I just thought that was remarkable. It says so much about your heart that you would be willing to do that. So I just want to publicly just say thank you for that.
Well, Tony, listen, I've lived a long time. And so I'm not every time, but I'm 90% of the time, I'm a pretty good judge of people. And I can tell other good spirits, and I felt your good spirit. And I will also say when it's Radio One, because Kathy Hughes was really one of my earliest cheerleaders for telling Madam Walker's story. When I first moved to Washington, D.C. in 1985, I was in the process of writing my first really young adult book about Madam Walker, doing research, and somehow Kathy Hughes, we connected, and she invited me onto her show when she was in this little, sort of storefront studio on 8th Street in DC before the neighborhood was gentrified. And she had me on the show. And then when my book came out, and then when my other book came out, she opened the door for me to be interviewed on a number of stations. So I will, anytime somebody who has that label calls me, I am ready to be available.
Well, that's awesome. I'll tell you what, just being connected with Radio One, I actually they even got me, I got even my little name badge, right? My Radio One name badge and key to the building. So the Radio One family has been good to me here locally in Charlotte. So just shout out to, I'll just do that real quick, to Melody Pratt, Olympia D, and Ron Holland. They've just been really kind of gracious to bring me on and really let me share a lot of information. I do a Money Minute where I give money tips on Monday and Wednesday, and then a show on Tuesday. So it's really been an awesome relationship. So thank you. So tell us about you. who you are, and then we can get into, Madam CJ Walker. But I want our people who are watching tonight to kind of get to know who you are.
Well, yes, sure. I will tell you a little bit about me, but I tell you, I'm really, in addition to talking about Madam Walker, I'm very much interested in financial literacy and generational wealth. And so I know we will talk about that. And I'm so glad that you are helping people have the tools. But my name is Alelia Bundles. I grew up in Indianapolis. My mother
Circle
was vice
City.
president of the Madam CJ Walker Manufacturing Company. My dad was president of another Black hair care company called Summit Laboratories. You mentioned the Dudleys, and they're, part of that sort of pantheon of Black families in hair care. So I grew up going to hair shows and knowing that both my parents were involved in the business. I would go with my mom to her office in the Walker Building, which is now a National Historic Landmark, and go, play on her typewriter and her adding machine before computers and calculators, and visit the factory where the ladies were still mixing the products by hand. This was in the 1950s. But my passion was writing, and my parents really encouraged me to follow my dreams. And so I became a journalist. And I had a long career in network television news at ABC and NBC. But on the side, really with the encouragement of my professor in graduate school in journalism at Columbia, Phil Garland, the only Black woman on the faculty, who encouraged me in the fall of 1975 to write about my family. So I was doing my career in network television news, and I was starting to write books about Madam Walker. And that has now resulted in me being her biographer and telling her story and getting the opportunity to share it with lots of people.
Well, that is
Awesome.
that is awesome. And so, growing up in Indianapolis, I mean, I imagine it's changed a lot over the years as well. So you pursued your career in journalism in Columbia. I mean, so that's
I went to Harvard for undergrad, and then I went to Columbia for graduate school.
So that right there, that's no joke.
Right.
I mean, those are credentials. A lot of people would love to have on their resume, and so that's pretty awesome. Which by the way, I want to do a shout out to AJ Joyner, who was my writing coach, and his writing app is now being introduced to Harvard this week. So
wonderful.
Yeah, so he's doing really well with that. So now you're encouraged to write about your family. So tell us a little bit of what that experience was like, and also your great grandmother. I know there's a whole lot more to it than what we.
So listen, I will tell you the last thing that I, as a young person, that I thought I would be doing at this stage in my life is focused on Madam Walker, but it's really been a gift and a blessing. I'm glad that I had parents who encouraged me to do my thing and develop my own identity and my own skills. But as I was developing those skills as a journalist and as a storyteller, I was really creating the platform that allows me to both know people in the media, to be a good storyteller, to understand visuals, so that I can bring Madam Walker's story to life. So I had this other sort of great good fortune that when I was in graduate school, I wrote my master's paper on Madam Walker. And a few years later, I'm working at NBC in the Houston bureau, just toiling away. At that point, I was a grunt, I was a very low level producer. And Alex Haley was still kind of riding the wave of Roots. And at that point, there were very few books being published by Black authors, and it was an era where I could, there might be a Toni Morrison book, and a year later maybe an Alice Walker book, and so there wasn't a lot out there. But Alex approached us and said he wanted to do a Madam Walker miniseries and kind of a fictionalized version of her life. We had dinner in New York, and during dinner he was explaining these grand plans, and I sort of said, well, Mr. Haley, I did my master's paper on Madam Walker, and I have all these letters, and I've done all this research, and maybe I could do some research for you. So 6 months later, I'm taking a leave of absence from NBC, and I spent 9 months part of the time in New York, reading through all these letters, interviewing people who had known her, some of these
Wow.
octogenarians and nonagenarians. And that was in the early 80s. So that became kind of the foundation for the research that I have done that's resulted in 4 books and a Netflix series and a bunch of other things. But it's been a real labor of love to tell the story.
Well, and as a storyteller, I mean, what better story to tell than your own legacy, right? That gives it a whole nother, I guess, another feel to it because of the, just you're able to be authentic and just, and that kind of brings me to this question: when you see all the things that you see, the Netflix, the different writings, documentary, how accurate is some of the things that we're seeing? Or is some of it just maybe not quite? And has there been some dramatization in order to get viewing audience? I guess is what I'm asking.
So as they say, Hollywood is going to Hollywood. If you read my books, On Her Own Ground,
Mhm.
The Life and Times of Madam Walker, then you're going to get an accurate story. The documentary $2 in a Dream, which was directed by Stanley Nelson, who people now know as a sort of a MacArthur genius who's done several African American documentaries. Stanley happens to be the grandson of Madam Walker's attorney, F.B. Ransom. So his documentary, though it was done in 1989, and as the very accomplished documentary filmmaker, he'd say, "Oh God, there's so many things I would do differently." That is accurate. And there are some other books. Tyrone McKinley Freeman, who's a good friend of mine, who's a professor of philanthropy at Indiana University, has written a wonderful book called Madam Walker's Gospel of Giving, where he does a really deep dive into Black philanthropy. So there are some things that are very accurate. And then, there's popular culture. And I would say, Michelle was saying she loved Madam Walker's tenacity. And that for me was the best part of the Netflix series. Octavia Spencer, I loved her every time I saw her on screen. She really embodied Madam Walker's tenacity, and she's so dignified. Octavia Spencer respected Madam Walker's legacy.
Yes.
On the other hand, to tell you quite frankly, while my book On Her Own Ground was optioned for the series, and it was really based on really deep, tenacious, meticulous research, the head writer and the showrunners, who were all Black women, really wanted to lean into, what ultimately I think was kind of more Real Housewives of Atlanta than Hidden Figures, which is what I was hoping for. So they just kind of made up a storyline of Madam Walker and her competitor Annie Malone as being, two women in a cat fight over color, skin color, and none of that was true. And so there's a lot of other stuff in there, but I would say what I would have done differently is to show that Madam Walker's story is really a story of women empowering women. I really was hoping for Hidden Figures, and I feel like I got something different. But Octavia was great, and we're looking at Blair Underwood, and I will say Blair Underwood is a really lovely man, a very nice man, and of course he's great to look at. But he played the part, and I think C.J. Walker, was helpful, and then he was a bit of a scoundrel. Um, but but Blair Underwood is a really lovely man, really talented person. So the two of them made the experience very positive for me.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, one of the things, and even as we showed that introductory video and the massive size of the sales force, and just to build a team like that, just to me, is just really tremendous. I mean, and you think about all the tools we have now between social media and being able to do things virtually and these type of things. There's people have a hard time building that type of team with all these
today,
tools.
right?
Yeah, and can you imagine what that was like then?
Mhm.
That's pretty amazing to me.
Well, and I think and that for me, that is the sort of the heart of the story for me. How she developed those skills. And
Yeah.
part of it, you think, okay, so here is Sarah Breedlove, 20-year-old widow, moving from the cotton fields of Louisiana to St. Louis, where her older brothers had arrived a decade earlier. They had become barbers at a time when Black men dominated the barbering trade. Widow with a young child moves to the big city. And so what happens? The women of the church,
Mm.
AME, St. Paul AME Church, embrace her.
Mm,
They looked out for the people who were arriving, the migrants who were arriving from the South, and made sure they were enrolled their children were enrolled in school, made sure they were coming to church. And Sarah Breedlove, poor washerwoman, had a good enough voice to be in the choir. So these more educated women embraced her and began to give her a vision of herself as something other than an illiterate washerwoman. She saw this example in the missionary society, in the choir, when they were doing, the women's auxiliary, the National Association of Colored Women, the national organization where women were creating kindergartens and orphans' homes and old folks' homes. So she saw that power, that collective power of women. And
mm,
when she finally began to organize her business, she used that model. We saw that picture in the video that you showed of her first convention in 1917. That was 200 women who came from all over the United States who had been sharecroppers and maids and a few school teachers. But she told them at that convention, using the lessons she learned from the women in the church, I want you to understand that your first duty is to humanity. I want others to look at us and realize that we care not
mm,
just about ourselves, but about others. And she gave prizes not just to the women who sold the most products, but to the women who contributed the most to charity. And at the end of the convention, the women sent a telegram to President Woodrow Wilson urging him to support legislation to make lynching a federal crime. So she was preaching hair care products and sales of hair care products, but this sort of larger vision, and allowing women who had been consigned to being maids and washerwomen that they could make money on their own, educate their children, buy homes, create generational wealth.
Yeah.
well, and it's so amazing because really the hair care was the vehicle
Vehicle.
that God gave her to use to really change lives.
Mhm.
Right.
And we even now draw inspiration from that. With her being the first, self-made female millionaire, not alone to be, African American or Black to do it. So
Right.
that's pretty amazing, the impact that she's even having on us even today.
Well, and you're right. It was a vehicle. I mean, I think there's a point where the hair care products became a means to an end. Yes, women were glad to have the hair care products, but it was a vehicle for her to show them that they could be economically independent. One of the things that I love about this is knowing a good friend of mine, Tiffany Gill, who's a historian who's at Rutgers, has done a lot of research on the civil rights movement and women's roles. And one of the things that she talks about in her book, Beauty Shop Politics, is how the women beauticians were organized politically, had annual conventions, and they helped pay for
Mhm.
the buses that sent people to the March on Washington in 1963.
Wow.
This is Women's History Month, y'all. Y'all getting it tonight, right?
Right.
So, this is perfect. This is perfect. This is exactly what I envisioned the conversation to be. And I love how you pulled out the importance of the church. Because, so often we hear that the church isn't relevant today, those type of things. But the church has played a huge impact in our struggle for civil rights, in our businesses, and all those things. And I think in many ways, our people have been hurt by desegregation. You think about the Green Book that was once around, where you knew where you could travel. We supported Black businesses, and we've kind of gotten away from that a little bit. So talk to us a little bit about the generational wealth. You mentioned that. I sense that you have a passion for it.
Absolutely. And I think that Madam Walker did really have a vision of people buying homes, and she was trying to even doing a housing development, and that didn't actually come to pass, but she wanted to do that. She invested in real estate, so she knew how important that was. And many of her agents bought homes, and they were able to educate their children. But what she didn't anticipate is what we now know of as redlining.
Yeah.
So people were buying homes in Black neighborhoods, developing those neighborhoods, but the banks, of course, as we know, and the federal policy and the banking policies were drawing red lines around those neighborhoods and not investing. In disinvestment caused those neighborhoods to deteriorate. And then on top of that, in so many cities in America, the highways cut through those neighborhoods and destroyed them. So where people were doing the right thing to buy a home, they weren't able to develop the equity that they're in a parallel world that white families were able to develop. And that is clear in many cities across the country. So I think sometimes Black folks beat up on themselves for not having generational wealth, but the deck was really literally legally and financially and policy-wise stacked against them. And then we had the period of time in the 2000s where the predatory loans really destroyed people, got into investments, got into loans that were unsustainable. And so now we're even pushed further back. So it is, and so what you're doing is trying to help people figure out how they can create wealth for the next generation. And I would just say, even in my own family, with Madam Walker, the Walker Company was, prosperous. The Walker Company actually never went out of business. There was another owner after my family, and the Ransom family were the sort of the trustees, and then an interim owner, and then it was bought by Richelieu Dennis, who's the founding CEO of Sundial Brands. Now, Rich built Sundial Brands using his Sierra Leonean grandmother's shea butter recipe, and then he sold it to Unilever, and now he invests in other companies. So Miele's sale to Procter & Gamble, Rich was involved in that. He's invested in Lip Bar. He's invested in Slutty Vegan. So he's helping to create generational wealth. But it's not just that if somebody makes the money that automatically there's generational wealth. It really is the kind of thing that you're doing, which is educating people. And I would say, just to put a cap on it, that in my family, so the Walker wealth, so to speak, was really challenged by the Great Depression, as it was for anybody who had any money at that period of time. So by the time it got to my generation, there was no trust fund, believe me.
You're not a trust fund baby.
Right. I'm not a trust fund baby. But my parents were both my mother was a third generation college graduate, my father a first generation college graduate, but a person who aspired and had a lot of dreams. And so I grew up with I paid attention to these lessons. I don't think my brothers paid attention, but save money, invest early. I came home from college by my freshman year, the summer of after my freshman year, and I had a big credit card bill. And my father said, before you go back to school, you will have paid this off. And I paid attention to that lesson. And I paid it off. And then, and and then I began, and he said, save money now and it will make a difference. Well, that's true. But of course, with student debt and all kinds of other things, it's much harder. But some of the basic things are still true.
Are still true. And you brought out some really important things about home ownership too, because even today, when we see that Black home ownership is around 40%, low 40s, where we have, mid 70s for white families. And that's where really the majority of our wealth normally starts. It starts there, maybe a 401k or something like that. but that home ownership, and we've talked about even on this show several times, even when the soldiers came home from World War II, they weren't allowed to participate in the GI Bill.
Mhm.
And then, I think about Durham. It's one of the Black Wall Streets that we had all over the country, and they built the highway right through the middle of that, and just kind of really, destroyed it in many cases, or at least it's not the strength and pillar that it was at that time. And so those are very valid points in terms of how we have been systematically kept in, I guess, at bay when it comes to this thing called wealth. And we have to know our history or you're deemed to repeat it, right?
Right.
And so I
And
think you can bring those
younger
things up.
folks, just they have no idea. I mean, one of the things that I do now, I'm very involved in a lot of community things in Indianapolis, even though from a distance. And, I'm 70 years old, so I remember the Black neighborhood before the
Mhm.
highway went through. But there are 2 or 3 generations of folks who don't remember it, who don't have any sense that there was something there before, and therefore have no expectation that there was something that had meaning,
Value. Yeah.
that had
Mhm.
value.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're many of us are from that state that we call Missouri, is the show me state, right? We need to see it, and we need to see it. We need to be able to visualize it. And I think, even I was thinking about, even when we were teaching Sunday school to younger kids, it's like one of the most devastating things is when they don't have dreams, and they've never been outside of their neighborhood. They've never left there, and we have to expand that vision, and for them to see that there is someone. And I'm not knocking ball players or entertainers at all, but they need to see that there's more to it. There's more opportunities. I mean, you may have a better chance. Michael V. Roberts, he and his brother combined are Black billionaires, and he told the kids up at A&T that you have a better chance of becoming me than you do becoming LeBron James,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Right.
Because there's those physical gifts, and then of course everything has to go right even with that. But there's just not that many that make it to that level, where if we can go out and work hard, we can build wealth for our families and create generational wealth. And that's what's so important about financial education, is because if I build a huge generational wealth and I have this nice huge estate, but if I don't teach my kids what to do with it, it'll be no different than them winning the lottery and being broke in 2 years.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's teaching the how do you, how do you steward it, and at the same time, how do you share the wealth? I mean, I would say a couple of things is that Madam Walker was really smart about her C-suite, about the people she surrounded herself with.
Mm.
So I see the
Yeah.
two of you are, that there's a good partnership there, but her attorney, FB Ransom, made a huge difference.
Yes.
The manager of her factory was a woman who'd
Mm.
been dean of girls and a Latin teacher at a Black boarding school, who knew how to motivate women. Her secretary took meticulous notes, and so as a result, I have more than 40,000 pages of documents and photographs that
Wow.
allow me to tell the story.
Wow.
There are very few Black businesses that have that. So that was really key. But another part of it is teaching people next generation. Some years ago, I went to a conference that Northern Trust held. And and these banks, as you know, they have these private weekends for their high net worth clients.
Right.
And this was a weekend at the Bacara, I think, the place where Oprah has had her parties. And they had invited a bunch of Black folks who were high net worth, clients. And I was a speaker, not a high net worth client. So, but it was a very interesting because there were a few people who had some second and third generation wealth, but most of the people were first generation, and
Mhm.
trying to figure out how they taught their children. And one of the people who happened to be a friend of mine who does some teaching at Harvard Business School. She advises wealthy clients. And she's one of the stories she told us that she had some of her clients in, LA, Beverly Hills, that one of the sons of one of her clients had a summer job. And the parents of the other child were saying, why are you making your son work? And they were like, because we want him to understand where a dollar comes from. If you buy the BMW for the person at 16, they don't have any idea what that is, and you have destroyed that child
Yes.
by spoiling them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree with
Yeah, and I know it's oftentimes we want to give our children what we didn't have and all these types of things, but it's you have to be careful with that. I mean, I think Anderson Cooper talks about his mom didn't leave him anything because she wanted him to get it on his own. Now, not anything was $1 million. I mean, let's
Right.
say that, but but again, the concept is for us to learn how to manage and handle the money on our own, how to get it, how to work for it, how to accumulate it, how to invest it and manage it is all very, very important. So
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. How to invest it. And then, you get, the times that we're in now where the market is making you nervous and all of that. But
Mhm.
it's also what you leave. Where are you leaving if you are fortunate to accumulate something? And have fun, blow the whatever, have some vacations and all those kinds of things. But for me, it's like there are some things that I really care about that I want to leave a legacy. I want to make some contributions to places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To leave something to give and it shall be given back to you, pressed down, running over, right? And so
Exactly.
we want to be givers. I mean, we want to give. And I've never really, you can't outgive God. I mean, the more you give, the more it comes back to you. What we put out in the atmosphere, we're bound to get it back. If we're greedy and you put out greed, that's exactly what's going to come back at you, right?
So true.
And so, and I've said this often is money is a great multiplier. It's like a magnifying glass. Whatever you are, when you get money, you'll become more of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to work on ourselves and who we are, so that when the money do come, that we'll be the type of person that will honor that and that will use it for good and all that. Because money's not evil, money's not bad, money's neutral. It's
Right.
really
Right.
what you do with it that makes it bad or evil.
That's
So
right. That's why I say it's not the money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money that
the
is
love of
Right.
money, right, right.
Money
And
is just a tool
it's
right.
just a
you
tool,
to get you things into your life.
right?
Tool.
So it's a tool so that if I want a computer, I don't have to go make a table and go trade someone a table for a computer, right? Because I wouldn't have a computer if I had to make the table. But so that's what money is. It's an exchange. It's a tool.
It's a tool.
So I want to ask you this, Madam Walker's 10 keys to success. Could you share a couple of them with us?
Yeah. So I would say, well, first she said that people often ask her the secret to her success, and she would say there is no royal flower strewn path to success. And if there is, I have not found it. For whatever success I have attained has been the result of much hard work and many sleepless nights. I got my start by giving myself a start. So don't sit down and wait for the opportunities to come. You have to get up and make them for yourself. Now, having said that, there are some keys.
That's tenacity.
That's
the tenacity, right?
Yeah.
You have to believe in yourself. She, at one point she said her friend said, "You'll never make train fare from one town to another." But she said, "I knew that I had something that was worth selling." But a key part is the C-suite, your executive team. Surround yourself with people who can shore you up. She knew she did not have a lot of formal education herself, so she found people who had skills that helped develop her, that helped her move on to the next level. She said, first, you have to have a great product or a great service. and then you have to market it. She would be on Instagram. She would be on TikTok. She understood the power of
For
promotion and
marketing. Yeah.
publicity and marketing. She advertised in the Black newspapers, and she paid her bills on time.
Mhm.
And she had something that was an early version of PowerPoint called a
Oh,
stereopticon. It was a projector, and she would travel with that with glass slides, and she would tell stories, not, she'd show pictures of not just her hair care process, but she'd also show pictures of Black institutions and schools and talk about, what Black people were doing. And she'd give a lecture, at a time, before movies, before most towns had movies, and certainly before TV. And she'd give a big lecture, a public lecture, and then in her recruiting for agents, she would meet with a smaller group of women, maybe 10 to 15 women, and demonstrate the hair care products. And she would see who asked the best questions. Who did the other women look up to? Who did they gravitate towards? And she'd make that person her lead agent. And so she
Mm.
was always recruiting, and she was a good judge of character. So those were some key pieces of good product. You got to market your product, have surround yourself with people who are strong in your C-suite, and recruit great people.
yes.
I can't help but to sit here and think about some of the things that you said, and it's almost I almost see Mary Kay.
Tony Jackson, I was just about to say that. Like,
I
see
I'm not.
Mary Kay. Yes,
Yeah,
I do. Yes.
and there's one. I have so much respect for Gloria Mayfield Banks
Yeah.
and some others, Cassette Ellis and some folks that have done really well. But I see almost
The
like,
foundation came from. Yeah.
yeah, where that
Yeah.
foundation came from.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and so
what
I think
awesome.
Mary Kay was born either somewhere between 1915 and 1919. So either 2 years
Okay.
before or 2 years after Madam Walker had her first convention.
Mhm.
So I don't think that I don't think Mary Kay knew anything about Madam Walker. But interestingly, there's a group called the Society of Cosmetics Chemists, and they're just outgoing president of the organization, Michelle Hines, is a chemist at Mary Kay. And a few years ago, she persuaded the organization to create a Madam Walker scholarship. So every
Mm.
year now, there are primarily young women who are in chemistry and who are doing cosmetics chemistry who get fellowships. So there is a parallel between just sort of empowering women
Right.
who are so they can work at home, they can
Mhm.
raise their children, they can have that independence.
Absolutely.
Yes. I
And
see a
what
lot of parallels.
Yeah, I do too. And when
Yeah.
you were talking about she had
Mhm.
10 women,
Right.
what did you call it, Michelle? I'm drawing a blank on it.
Yeah. Your
parties.
team leaders, like picking the team leader, who have like 4 people under them, then your sales director, like as they grow, they move up. It's the same thing. The
Mhm.
Right.
encouragement, the conventions. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that
There's just a lot
empowering
of
women.
parallels.
That
Empowering women. There's
the
just a
whole
lot of
thing.
parallels between
Yeah,
the two.
awesome.
And
Awesome.
there's time between when Madam Walker, was alive, and then when Mary Kay like became Mary Kay.
Mhm.
Same concepts. So
Yeah. And what's interesting is because those business concepts work
they work,
regardless of,
and they
you know,
work today,
and they work
you
today.
know? Yeah.
But what makes it, to me, the underlying thing is that your purpose has to be greater than making money.
Mm-hmm.
That will only motivate you for so long, because you know more money. What is more money going to do? How many more
Right.
cars do you need?
Yeah.
But when you have a goal to empower people and to help them create a better way of life and all those type of things, I think that's the golden ticket right there. That's the thing that God honors and will bless. So I can't believe how fast this time has gone by.
Yes.
We are a few minutes to 9, and I would just like to give you the opportunity, anything at all you want to share. Oh, we didn't talk about the Barbie doll. Dude, we didn't talk about the Barbie doll. The
Here
Madam
she is.
Yes, I see her back there.
Yeah.
When you told me about that, and I had not heard of it, I ran home and told my wife, "It's like there's a Madam C.J. Walker
Let me see.
Barbie doll,"
Grab
and so we went and like there it is, and so that is awesome. So y'all buy your granddaughters, buy them that Madam C.J. Walker Barbie doll,
Well,
right?
I tell you, this is what one of the joys for me. It's just I really love telling this story. And then there are these sort of the icing on the cake is when something like this happens. And I got a call from Mattel about a year and a half ago, and they said, "Would you be interested in a Madam Walker Barbie doll? Because it's part of an Inspiring Women series." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Well, yes."
Right.
And
Yes.
even though I didn't play with Barbies growing up, I do collect black dolls now
Mhm.
because I think we need to see ourselves. So
Yes.
that was exciting. Of course, we have the Madam Walker line of hair care products, Madam by Madam CJ Walker, that are available at Walmart that we developed with Sundial Brands in collaboration with Walmart. And then there are two Madam Walker National Historic Landmarks in Indianapolis and the house in Irvington, New York, that Richelieu Dennis's family now owns, and that is what is being turned into a think tank for women of color entrepreneurs. So there are just so many wonderful things, wonderful bonuses that have happened with this story.
Well, I thank you so much for coming, Michelle. Anything?
I'm just inspired. I am, and I love the fact that some of the principles that she talked about in the turn of the century are still relevant today. She was
Absolutely,
phenomenal. She really was.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I just thank you for again taking the time to come and share this with us. This will be I will be forever grateful for it, and I hope that this won't be the last time we are in each other's company. And if there's anything that we can do um, for you, let us know. We did have one question. Says, since she was born in the Delta of Louisiana, are there any historical sites that pay tribute to her?
Listen, the folks in Delta, Louisiana are great. There's a museum that's there. She's included. There's a marker. And actually, the one of the state legislators is and a group in Delta are trying to raise money for a Madam Walker statue, and they celebrate her Juneteenth in Delta every year. So
Nice.
they're doing their part.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here, for encouraging our audience, to encouraging not just the women, even the guys. I mean, we leave here encouraged tonight, right? So this has been an awesome show. Thank you again. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you're watching this tonight, and just please share, tell anyone that you know they can go to the Real Money Coach on YouTube. And if you go to live, you'll be able to see this show. It'll live there for as long as we have it going. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much. And everyone have a wonderful, blessed evening. And we will see you on the or hear you, or you'll hear us on the radio on Saturday morning and through the podcast. And then we'll be right back here next Tuesday as we kick off Financial Literacy Month. You're watching the Real Money Coach Show. Have a good evening. Bye, everybody.